everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. This one is going to be really fascinating, I think, because we're going to be talking about something that's, well, pretty crucial in the world of leadership today.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're diving into a pretty big shift in how we think about leadership, and specifically, we're looking at why putting employee mental health and well-being front and center isn't just, some nice perk or a feel-good initiative.
Yeah,
It's really becoming a core driver of a company's success, like a fundamental piece of the puzzle.
it really is.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is the sources you've gathered all point to this pretty significant evolution in thinking.
Mm,
We've, for a long time, been kind of stuck in this mindset of just pure productivity, bottom line results.
right. Yeah.
And often that came at the expense of the people, the
It's a
employees.
human element. Exactly.
Exactly. And more, what we're realizing is that that's just not a sustainable approach.
Okay, so let's rewind a bit. Paint a picture for us of that traditional workplace, that old way of thinking.
Right.
What did it actually look like in practice?
Well, it's all about hitting those targets, right? Production quotas, sales figures, efficiency.
Right, the numbers.
The numbers, exactly. And there was this unspoken, sometimes spoken expectation that work came first no matter what. But the problem is that kind of relentless pressure, it leads to burnout, it leads to people disengaging, and ironically,
Yeah.
it ultimately hurts the very productivity it was supposed to boost.
Backfires, yeah.
It backfires completely.
Yeah.
It's like, running a car engine at max speed constantly. Eventually, something's going to give.
It's going to break down. Yeah, that's a great analogy. Okay, so if that old engine is sputtering out, what's fueling this new focus on well-being? What's the why behind this shift in leadership thinking?
There are a bunch of really compelling reasons, and they're not just about being nice. They're good for business.
Right.
First off, think about the link between someone's mental state and how well they can actually perform.
Okay. Yeah.
When people are mentally healthy, they're more engaged, they can focus better, and naturally they're more productive. It's common sense.
Right.
But on the flip side, if someone's struggling with their mental well-being, anxiety, stress,
Right.
you see their work suffer, they might be absent more, and that burnout we talked about, that becomes a real risk, and that affects the whole team.
It's a domino effect.
Absolutely. It's hard to be your best, to solve problems, to think creatively when you're dealing with a lot of inner turmoil.
Absolutely. No one's at their best when they're feeling that way.
Exactly.
Okay, so there's the performance piece. What else are your sources pointing to as a driving force?
Well, attracting and keeping top talent is huge.
Yeah, that's always a challenge.
In today's job market, companies that show they genuinely care about their employees' well-being, they have a real edge.
Yeah, people are looking for that.
People want to work for organizations that see them as human beings, not just worker bees.
Right, they want to feel valued.
Exactly. And once you've got those great employees, keeping them happy and healthy is key to keeping them around.
Makes sense, yeah.
High turnover is expensive, not just the cost of hiring, but the loss of knowledge and experience.
It disrupts everything.
It really does. It's much smarter to create an environment where people want to stay.
Where they can thrive.
Exactly.
Now, what about innovation? Does employee well-being play a role there?
It's actually really interesting. When you have a workplace where people feel supported mentally, it creates this amazing breeding ground for creativity,
Okay.
to share those outside-the-box ideas.
They're not afraid to take risks.
Exactly. Because when you're constantly stressed or afraid to make a mistake, you tend to play it safe.
You don't want to rock the boat.
Right. But there's a ton of research showing that teams that have what's called psychological safety,
Okay.
where people feel comfortable expressing themselves without fear of being shut down,
Yeah.
those teams are way more innovative.
So there's a direct link between feeling good and coming up with good ideas.
It seems like it, yeah.
That's fascinating. And your sources also talk about team cohesion, how well teams work together.
Yeah, this is a big one. When employees feel like their company genuinely cares about them,
Right.
it builds this foundation of trust.
Okay.
And that trust is what allows for real collaboration, a sense of community.
Makes sense.
People are more willing to help each other, to communicate openly when they feel safe and valued.
Right. It strengthens those bonds.
Exactly.
Now, I'm guessing all these positive impacts we've talked about, they eventually trickle down to the bottom line, right? To the financial health of the company.
Absolutely. Addressing mental health proactively can save companies a lot of money.
Okay.
You have lower healthcare costs, fewer disability claims, and, like we said, less turnover, which is huge.
Yeah, all of that adds up.
It really does. It's about investing in your people up front rather than trying to fix problems later.
Being proactive, yeah.
Exactly. There are studies that actually put a number on this, showing a really strong return on investment for companies that have solid well-being programs.
So it's good for the people and good for the business. That's a win-win.
Definitely a win-win.
Okay, so we've talked about the why, the compelling reasons for this shift in leadership. Let's get practical now.
Sure.
What are some actual things leaders can do, concrete strategies to support their employees' mental health?
Well, one of the most important things is just creating a culture of open communication.
Okay.
People need to feel safe talking about mental health without feeling like they're going to be judged or penalized.
Right, no stigma.
Exactly. That means leaders need to be good listeners, they need to show empathy, and be genuinely willing to support their employees.
Yeah, actions speak louder than words.
Absolutely. If people are afraid to speak up, you can't help them.
Right. It starts with that open dialogue. And that ties into reducing the stigma around mental health, right?
Yeah, that's huge.
How can leaders play a role there?
Leaders have a lot of influence. They can talk about mental health openly themselves, share resources, support initiatives.
Lead by example.
Exactly. When leaders are willing to be open and vulnerable, it shows everyone else that it's okay to not be okay.
Right, that it's a sign of strength to ask for help.
Exactly. It normalizes the conversation.
Yeah. What about more tangible support, like resources companies can offer?
That's essential. Things like employee assistance programs or EAPs, offering counseling,
Okay.
making sure there's good information available about mental health.
Right.
And it's not just about having these things, it's about making sure people feel comfortable using them.
Encouraging them to actually take advantage of them.
Exactly. You can have the best EAP in the world,
Mhm.
but if people are afraid to use it, it's not doing any good.
It's pointless, yeah.
Exactly.
Now, we've got to talk about work-life balance. It feels like that's more important than ever these days.
It really is. And leaders need to be champions for that. That means offering flexible work arrangements when possible, encouraging people to actually take their vacation time,
Right.
making sure workloads are reasonable, and pushing back against that culture of overwork.
Right. That always-on mentality.
Exactly. People need time to recharge,
Yeah.
to have a life outside of work.
It's about giving them permission to have a life.
Yeah, and ironically, that often makes them better employees when they're at work.
They come back refreshed and more engaged.
Exactly.
Okay, what about managing stress in the day-to-day? What can leaders do there?
Leaders need to be really aware of the things that cause stress in the workplace.
Okay.
Could be unclear communication, not enough resources, unrealistic deadlines.
Yeah, all of that.
Once you know what the stressors are, you can start to address them.
So it's about being proactive, being observant.
Exactly. Having regular check-ins with your team can help too, just to see how they're doing, what's stressing them out.
Right, taking the temperature. You know, one thing I think is really powerful is when leaders walk the walk themselves, when they prioritize their own well-being.
Oh, absolutely.
How much of an impact does that have on the team?
It's huge.
Mm.
When leaders model healthy boundaries, when they take care of themselves,
Yeah.
it sends this message that it's not just okay, it's important.
It normalizes it.
It does.
Mm.
It shows everyone that it's not a sign of weakness to prioritize your well-being. It's actually a sign of strength.
Like you said, leading by example.
Exactly.
Your sources also talk about empathy.
Yeah.
How does that fit into creating a supportive work environment?
Well, emotional intelligence, and empathy in particular, is crucial.
Right.
Leaders need to be able to understand what their employees are going through, see things from their perspective.
Put themselves in their shoes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That means really listening, showing compassion, and responding to people's individual needs.
Seeing them as whole people, not just employees.
Exactly. Everyone is dealing with stuff outside of work.
Yeah.
And good leaders recognize that.
Okay, so to wrap things up, what are some of the hallmarks of a positive, supportive work environment, the kind of place where people can thrive?
Well, it's built on respect, trust, genuine support, and recognition.
Okay.
People need to feel valued for what they bring to the table.
Appreciated.
Exactly. And they need to feel empowered to do their best work.
So it's about creating that sense of psychological safety we talked about.
It all comes back to that.
It seems like the shift we've been talking about, prioritizing employee well-being, it's not just a fad, it's a really fundamental change in how we think about leadership.
It really is. Your sources are very clear on that.
And they're saying that leaders who embrace this, they're not just doing the right thing, they're making a smart, strategic move.
Absolutely. It's an investment in the long-term health and success of their organization.
They're building a more engaged, more productive, more resilient workforce.
Exactly. It's a win for everyone involved.
So, as we've heard in this deep dive, the definition of effective leadership is evolving. It's no longer just about hitting targets, it's about taking care of your people.
And ultimately, those two things are deeply connected.
Yeah, they go hand in hand.
Absolutely.
Well, we hope this deep dive has given you some food for thought, some new insights into this really crucial shift in leadership thinking.
It's a fascinating topic.
If you found this helpful and you'd like to support us in making more deep dives like this, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel.
We appreciate your support.
Thanks for joining us.